Today, I want to take you inside one of the harshest correctional environments in the United States. The prisons of Alaska, often described as America's coldest and most isolated prison system. When we imagine prison, many of us think about locked cells, steel bars, and strict security. But in Alaska, imprisonment means something even more extreme. It means surviving in freezing temperatures, living far away from major cities, and enduring isolation unlike almost anywhere else in America. Alaska is known for its breathtaking mountains, endless snow, and remote wilderness. Yet behind this natural beauty lies a correctional system facing unique challenges. Many prisons are located in isolated areas where winter darkness can last for weeks and temperatures fall far below zero. In such conditions, prison becomes not only a punishment, but also a daily struggle against loneliness, mental stress, and harsh weather. One of the biggest challenges inside Alaska state prisons is isolation. Families often live hundreds of miles away, and travel is expensive and difficult. Many inmates rarely receive visitors. This separation weakens emotional support and can increase depression, anxiety, and hopelessness. Another major issue is mental health. Long winters, limited daylight, and confinement can deeply affect the human mind. Prison officials and healthcare workers try to provide counseling and rehabilitation programs, but resources are often limited because of the remote locations. Life inside these prisons is highly structured. Inmates follow strict schedules involving meals, work assignments, security checks, and limited recreation. Some prisoners participate in educational programs, vocational training, and substance abuse recovery efforts. These programs aim to prepare inmates for a better future after release. However, Alaska's prison system also reflects larger questions about justice in America. Should prisons focus only on punishment, or should they also emphasize rehabilitation and second chances? This debate becomes even more important in extreme environments where isolation can damage both mental and emotional well-being. Despite the harsh conditions, there are stories of resilience and transformation. Some inmates earn diplomas, learn job skills, reconnect with their families, or overcome addiction. These stories remind us that even in the coldest and most isolated places, hope can still exist. In conclusion, Alaska state prisons are more than secure buildings surrounded by snow. They are places where human beings face extreme emotional, physical, and psychological challenges every single day. Understanding these prisons helps us better understand the broader issues of justice, rehabilitation, mental health, and humanity in society. Alaska state prisons are considered among the harshest correctional environments in the United States because of their extreme weather conditions and remote geographical locations. Unlike prisons in warmer states, inmates in Alaska must endure freezing temperatures, heavy snowfall, icy winds, and long winters that can last for many months. In some regions, temperatures can fall far below zero, creating dangerous and uncomfortable living conditions both inside and outside prison facilities. The environment itself becomes an additional layer of punishment. Many prisons are surrounded by isolated wilderness, snow-covered mountains, and vast empty land, making escape nearly impossible. During winter, daylight hours become very short, and in some areas darkness can dominate most of the day. This lack of sunlight can seriously affect a person's mental and emotional health, increasing feelings of loneliness, depression, and stress among inmates. Transportation and communication are also difficult because of Alaska's geography. Some prisons are located far away from major cities and communities, which means supplies, medical assistance, and family visits are harder to arrange. Snowstorms and severe weather conditions can delay travel and create additional challenges for prison staff and inmates alike. Inside the facilities, maintaining heat, security, and daily operations requires constant effort. Heating systems are essential for survival during winter months, and even small failures can create serious risks. Outdoor activities are often limited because of extreme cold, reducing opportunities for exercise and recreation. This can make prison life feel even more restrictive and isolated. The harsh climate also impacts prison workers, guards, healthcare providers, and rehabilitation staff. Everyone living or working in these remote areas must adapt to the demanding environment. The combination of cold weather, isolation, and strict prison conditions creates a unique correctional system unlike most others in America. One of the most difficult realities of life inside Alaska state prisons is severe isolation. Unlike prisons located near large cities or populated regions, many correctional facilities in Alaska are built in remote and distant areas surrounded by forests, mountains, and frozen landscapes. This geographical isolation creates emotional, psychological, and social challenges that deeply affect inmates throughout their imprisonment. For many prisoners, staying connected with family members becomes extremely difficult. Families may live hundreds or even thousands of miles away from the prison facility. Because Alaska is so large and transportation is expensive, relatives often cannot afford regular visits. Harsh winter weather, snowstorms, and limited transportation routes make travel even harder. As a result, many inmates go months or years without seeing loved ones face to face. The absence of family support can have serious emotional consequences. Human beings naturally depend on social interaction, encouragement, and emotional connection. When inmates are separated from parents, spouses, children, or friends for long periods, feelings of loneliness become stronger. Some prisoners experience sadness, hopelessness, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion because they feel forgotten or disconnected from the outside world. Isolation inside prison is not only physical, but also psychological. Inmates spend much of their time inside controlled environments with limited freedom and restricted communication. Some prisoners may be placed in segregation or solitary confinement for disciplinary reasons or security concerns. In these situations, they may spend many hours alone in small cells with very little human contact. Extended isolation can damage mental health and increase stress, anger, confusion, and depression. Alaska's long winters and dark seasons make this isolation even more intense. During certain months, there are very few daylight hours, and the cold weather limits outdoor movement. The lack of sunlight and limited social activity can create an atmosphere that feels emotionally heavy and mentally exhausting. For many inmates, the prison environment becomes not only physically confined but emotionally overwhelming. Communication with the outside world is also limited by strict prison regulations. Phone calls are monitored and restricted. Internet access is highly controlled, and opportunities for meaningful interaction are limited. Although letters and occasional calls provide some comfort, they often cannot replace direct human connection. Many inmates struggle with the emotional pain of missing important family events such as birthdays, graduations, or the growth of their children. This severe isolation affects rehabilitation as well. Prisoners who lose social connections may find it harder to rebuild their lives after release. Strong family relationships often help former inmates successfully return to society, but long-term separation can weaken those bonds over time. The emotional distance created by isolation may continue even after imprisonment ends. The isolated nature of Alaska state prisons creates a unique and difficult experience where inmates must cope not only with punishment and confinement, but also with deep loneliness and emotional separation from the outside world. Mental health challenges are one of the most serious and complex issues inside Alaska state prisons. The combination of extreme weather, isolation, strict confinement, and limited social interaction creates an environment that can place enormous pressure on the human mind. Many inmates enter prison already struggling with emotional trauma, addiction, anxiety, depression, or other psychological conditions, and the harsh prison environment can make these problems even worse over time. One major factor affecting mental health in Alaska prisons is the long and dark winter season. In many parts of Alaska, daylight becomes extremely limited during winter months, and some regions experience long periods of darkness. Human beings naturally depend on sunlight for emotional balance and physical health. The lack of sunlight can contribute to sadness, fatigue, mood swings, low motivation, and depression. For inmates who already feel trapped and disconnected from society, the dark environment can intensify feelings of hopelessness and emotional suffering. Isolation also plays a powerful role in damaging mental well-being. Many prisoners are separated from family and friends for long periods because of Alaska's remote prison locations. Without emotional support and regular human connection, inmates may experience loneliness, stress, and severe emotional pain. Some prisoners begin to feel forgotten by society, which can lead to despair and a loss of self-worth. The daily structure of prison life itself can also create psychological pressure. Inmates live under constant supervision, strict rules, and limited personal freedom. Every movement is controlled by schedules, security procedures, and prison regulations. Over time, this lack of independence can cause frustration, anger, emotional numbness, and anxiety. Some inmates struggle to cope with the repetitive and restricted nature of prison life, especially during long sentences. Another serious issue is solitary confinement or segregation. In certain cases, inmates may spend many hours or even days alone in small cells with very little communication or social interaction. Prolonged isolation can have severe effects on mental health. Prisoners in solitary conditions may experience panic attacks, depression, hallucinations, confusion, emotional instability, and difficulty concentrating. Extended isolation can weaken a person's emotional resilience and increase psychological suffering. Substance abuse and addiction are also closely connected to mental health problems in prisons. Many inmates in Alaska's correctional system have histories of drug or alcohol addiction. Addiction often exists alongside trauma, stress, and mental illness. While some rehabilitation programs are available, limited resources and overcrowded systems can make treatment difficult for everyone who needs help. Prison staff and healthcare workers face challenges as well. Providing mental health care in remote prisons is difficult because trained professionals, counselors, and psychologists may be limited in number. In some facilities, there are not enough resources to fully support inmates dealing with severe emotional or psychological conditions. This can result in untreated mental health issues becoming more serious over time. The emotional stress of prison can also lead to conflicts, violence, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts among inmates. When individuals are unable to manage anger, trauma, or emotional pain, tensions inside prison can rise. Correctional officers must constantly balance security with the need to support vulnerable prisoners facing psychological difficulties. Despite these challenges, some Alaska prisons attempt to provide counseling, therapy programs, educational opportunities, and rehabilitation services aimed at improving mental health. Support groups, addiction recovery programs, and vocational training can help inmates regain confidence and emotional stability. For some prisoners, these programs offer hope and a chance to rebuild their lives mentally and emotionally. Life inside Alaska state prisons is controlled by a highly strict and organized daily routine designed to maintain order, discipline, and security. Every part of an inmate's day is carefully scheduled, leaving very little room for personal freedom or independent decision-making. From the moment prisoners wake up in the morning until the lights go out at night, their activities are regulated by prison rules, security procedures, and institutional schedules. The day usually begins very early with mandatory wake-up calls. Inmates are expected to prepare quickly for inspections and head counts conducted by correctional officers. These regular counts are essential for maintaining security and ensuring that every prisoner is accounted for at all times. Missing a count or failing to follow instructions can lead to disciplinary action. Meals are served at fixed times each day, and inmates must follow strict procedures while entering and leaving dining areas. Food portions, seating arrangements, and meal schedules are closely monitored by prison staff. In some facilities, inmates eat quickly under supervision before returning to their assigned areas. The routine nature of meals becomes part of the repetitive structure that defines prison life. Work assignments are another important part of the daily schedule. Many inmates are required to participate in prison jobs such as kitchen work, cleaning, laundry services, maintenance, or other institutional duties. These jobs help keep the prison functioning while also teaching inmates responsibility and work habits. However, the work is often repetitive and physically demanding, especially in facilities affected by Alaska's harsh weather conditions. Educational and rehabilitation programs may also be included in the daily routine. Some prisoners attend classes to earn diplomas, improve literacy skills, or receive vocational training in trades such as carpentry, mechanics, or technical work. Others participate in substance abuse treatment programs, counseling sessions, or behavioral therapy. These structured activities are intended to help inmates prepare for life after release and reduce the chances of returning to crime. Recreation time is limited and carefully supervised. Depending on weather conditions and prison regulations, inmates may have access to indoor gyms, exercise yards, or outdoor spaces for a short period each day. In Alaska's freezing climate, outdoor activities can become extremely difficult during winter months, reducing opportunities for physical exercise and fresh air. This limitation can increase feelings of confinement and frustration among prisoners. Security procedures remain constant throughout the day. Inmates are regularly searched, monitored by surveillance systems, and supervised by correctional officers. Movement between prison areas is controlled through locked gates, checkpoints, and strict permission systems. Even small activities such as making phone calls, showering, or attending programs are scheduled and regulated. The repetitive nature of prison routines can have strong psychological effects. Many inmates describe prison life as emotionally exhausting because every day feels nearly identical to the one before. The constant structure removes personal freedom and independence, making prisoners feel controlled at all times. Over long periods, this repetitive environment can lead to boredom, emotional stress, frustration, and mental fatigue. Discipline is enforced through strict rules and consequences. Violations such as fighting, refusing orders, possessing contraband, or breaking prison regulations can result in punishments including loss of privileges, restricted movement, or solitary confinement. Because of the isolated and high-security nature of many Alaska prisons, maintaining order is considered a top priority by correctional authorities. For prison staff, managing this daily structure requires constant attention and coordination. Officers must supervise inmates, prevent violence, respond to emergencies, and ensure that routines operate smoothly despite harsh weather conditions and limited resources. The prison system depends heavily on routine because even small disruptions can create security risks inside the facility. The strict daily routine shapes nearly every aspect of an inmate's experience in Alaska state prisons, creating a controlled environment where discipline, order, and survival become central parts of everyday life. One of the most significant challenges facing Alaska state prisons is the issue of limited resources. Because many correctional facilities are located in remote and isolated areas, providing adequate services, staff, equipment, and support becomes far more difficult than in prisons located in larger and more connected states. The harsh climate, long distances, and smaller population centers create obstacles that affect nearly every part of prison operations. Healthcare is one of the areas most heavily impacted by limited resources. Many prisons struggle to provide consistent medical care because doctors, specialists, mental health professionals, and trained healthcare workers may not always be available in remote regions. Inmates often require treatment for chronic illnesses, injuries, addiction problems, and mental health conditions, but the availability of medical services can be restricted due to staffing shortages or transportation difficulties. In severe cases, prisoners may need to be transported long distances to hospitals or specialized facilities, which increases costs and creates additional security concerns. Mental health services are also limited in many correctional facilities. Alaska prisons house inmates dealing with depression, trauma, addiction, anxiety, and other psychological disorders. Yet there may not be enough counselors, therapists, or psychologists to support every prisoner in need. This shortage can lead to untreated mental health conditions becoming more serious over time. Without proper emotional support and rehabilitation programs, Inmates may struggle to manage stress, anger, and emotional instability. Educational and vocational programs can also suffer because of resource limitations. Rehabilitation programs require trained instructors, equipment, classrooms, and funding. In some prisons, opportunities for education or job training are restricted because facilities lack enough teachers, technology, or financial support. This can reduce inmates' chances of learning useful skills that could help them build stable lives after release. Limited access to education may also increase the likelihood of repeat criminal behavior after prisoners return to society. Rehabilitation programs play an important role inside Alaska state prisons because they are designed to help inmates improve their lives, develop useful skills, and prepare for a successful return to society after release. While prisons are built to enforce punishment and maintain security, many correctional officials also believe that inmates should be given opportunities to change their behavior and reduce the chances of committing crimes again in the future. In Alaska's prison system, rehabilitation efforts focus on education, job training, addiction recovery, mental health support, and personal development. Educational programs are among the most valuable rehabilitation tools available to inmates. Many prisoners enter the correctional system with limited education, low literacy skills, or incomplete schooling. To address this issue, some prisons offer classes that help inmates earn high school diplomas or equivalent certifications. Literacy programs and basic education courses allow prisoners to improve reading, writing, and communication skills, which are essential for finding employment and functioning successfully outside prison. Vocational training programs are also important because they provide practical job skills that inmates can use after release. Depending on the facility and available resources, prisoners may receive training in areas such as carpentry, welding, construction, mechanics, cooking, maintenance work, or technical trades. These programs aim to increase employment opportunities and reduce the risk of former inmates returning to criminal activity because of unemployment or financial hardship. Learning a trade can give prisoners a sense of purpose, confidence, and direction for the future. Substance abuse treatment is another major part of rehabilitation in Alaska state prisons. Many inmates struggle with drug addiction or alcohol dependency, which often contribute to criminal behavior and repeated arrests. Rehabilitation programs may include counseling sessions, group therapy, recovery education, and structured addiction treatment plans. These programs encourage inmates to understand the causes of addiction, develop healthier coping methods, and build strategies for avoiding substance abuse after release. Mental health counseling is also an important rehabilitation service. Prison environments can be emotionally stressful, especially in isolated and harsh conditions like those found in Alaska. Some inmates carry deep emotional trauma, anger issues, anxiety, depression, or psychological disorders that affect their behavior and decision-making. Counseling and therapy programs help prisoners discuss emotional struggles, manage stress, improve communication skills, and develop healthier patterns of thinking. Behavioral rehabilitation programs focus on personal responsibility and decision-making. These programs teach inmates about conflict resolution, anger management, emotional control, and social behavior. By learning how to handle stress and interpersonal problems more effectively, prisoners may become better prepared to adjust to life outside prison walls. Some correctional facilities also provide religious and spiritual programs led by chaplains or community volunteers. These programs may include worship services, spiritual counseling, religious study groups, and moral guidance. For many inmates, faith-based programs offer emotional support, hope, and a sense of inner peace during difficult periods of incarceration. Rehabilitation programs can also improve prison safety and atmosphere. Inmates who participate in educational or vocational activities often become more focused, disciplined, and cooperative. Structured programs reduce idle time and can help lower tensions, violence, and behavioral problems within correctional facilities. However, rehabilitation efforts in Alaska prisons face serious challenges because of limited resources, staffing shortages, and remote prison locations. Some facilities may not have enough teachers, counselors, therapists, or training equipment to serve all inmates who want to participate. Harsh weather conditions and financial limitations can also make it difficult to expand rehabilitation opportunities. Despite these obstacles, many inmates benefit greatly from rehabilitation programs. Some prisoners discover talents they never had the chance to develop before incarceration. Others gain confidence by completing educational courses, learning trades, or overcoming addiction. These achievements can help inmates rebuild their self-esteem and create goals for a more stable future. Rehabilitation programs represent an effort to transform prisons from places focused only on punishment into institutions that also encourage growth, responsibility, and personal change. In Alaska state prisons, these programs provide inmates with opportunities to improve themselves even while living in one of the harshest and most isolated correctional environments in America. The prison system in Alaska, like many correctional systems across the United States, raises important questions about the true meaning of justice. One of the biggest debates surrounding prisons is whether their primary purpose should be punishment, rehabilitation, protection of society, or a combination of all three. Alaska's harsh prison conditions, extreme isolation, and difficult environment make this debate even more intense because they force people to consider how far punishment should go and what role prisons should play in changing human behavior. Many people believe that prisons exist mainly to punish individuals who break the law. According to this view, inmates must face strict consequences for their actions in order to protect society and discourage future crimes. Supporters of this perspective often argue that prisons should be difficult because criminal behavior causes harm to victims, families, and communities. They believe strong punishment helps maintain law and order and demonstrates that illegal actions have serious consequences. However, others argue that prisons should focus more heavily on rehabilitation and second chances. They believe that many inmates come from backgrounds shaped by poverty, addiction, abuse, mental illness, lack of education, or social instability. According to this perspective, simply locking people away without helping them improve their lives may not solve the deeper causes of crime. Supporters of rehabilitation believe prisons should provide education, counseling, addiction treatment, and vocational training to help inmates successfully return to society after release. Alaska's prison environment intensifies this debate because the conditions themselves can be extremely harsh. Remote locations, freezing temperatures, emotional isolation, and limited contact with family create additional suffering beyond normal imprisonment. Some critics argue that these conditions may damage mental health and make rehabilitation more difficult. They question whether such severe isolation truly improves public safety or whether it increases emotional trauma among inmates. The issue of solitary confinement is also part of the justice debate. Some prison officials consider isolation necessary for maintaining security and controlling dangerous behavior. Others believe prolonged solitary confinement can cause severe psychological harm and violate basic human dignity. Discussions about mental health, human rights, and ethical treatment of prisoners continue to influence how people view correctional systems in Alaska and across America. Another major issue involves repeat offenders and recidivism, which refers to former inmates returning to crime after release. Critics of purely punishment-based systems argue that prisons fail if inmates leave without education, job skills, or emotional support. If prisoners cannot successfully reintegrate into society, they may return to criminal behavior, leading to overcrowded prisons and ongoing social problems. This has led many experts to support rehabilitation-focused approaches aimed at reducing repeat offenses. The debate also includes financial concerns. Operating prisons in Alaska is extremely expensive because of transportation costs, heating expenses, remote infrastructure, and staffing challenges. Some people question whether spending large amounts of money on incarceration alone is the most effective use of public resources. Others argue that investing more in education, mental health services, and community support could help prevent crime before it happens. Victims' rights are another important part of the discussion about justice. Many victims and families affected by crime seek accountability, safety, and closure. They may feel that strong prison sentences are necessary to recognize the seriousness of the harm caused. Balancing the rights of victims with the possibility of inmate rehabilitation creates a difficult challenge for lawmakers, judges, and correctional officials. Public opinion about justice often changes depending on the type of crime involved. Violent crimes usually lead to stronger demands for punishment and strict security measures, while non-violent offenses may encourage more support for rehabilitation programs. Debates also continue over how juvenile offenders, mentally ill inmates, and individuals struggling with addiction should be treated within the prison system. In Alaska, these questions become even more complicated because of the state's unique environment and isolated correctional facilities. The prison system represents more than locked cells and security measures. It reflects society's larger beliefs about crime, responsibility, fairness, human rights, and the possibility of personal transformation. Despite the harsh conditions, emotional isolation, and strict routines inside Alaska state prisons, many inmates experience moments of hope and personal transformation during their time in incarceration. While prisons are often associated with punishment and suffering, they can also become places where individuals reflect on their past mistakes, confront personal struggles, and attempt to rebuild their lives. In one of America's coldest and most isolated prison systems, stories of change and resilience continue to emerge even in difficult circumstances. For many inmates, prison becomes the first time they seriously examine the choices that led them into criminal behavior. Away from outside distractions and unhealthy environments, some prisoners begin to reflect deeply on their lives, relationships, addictions, and personal decisions. This self-reflection can become the starting point for emotional growth and change. Inmates who once lived with anger, violence, or substance abuse may begin seeking healthier ways to think, behave, and communicate. Education often plays a major role in transformation. Some inmates enter prison with little formal education or limited reading and writing skills. Through prison educational programs, they may earn diplomas, complete literacy courses, or continue higher education studies. Achieving educational goals gives many prisoners a sense of accomplishment and confidence they may never have experienced before. Learning new skills can help inmates believe they still have value and potential despite their past mistakes. Vocational training programs also create opportunities for change. Prisoners who learn trades such as carpentry, welding, cooking, construction, or mechanics may develop practical abilities that can support them after release. These programs not only teach job skills, but also encourage discipline, patience, responsibility, and teamwork. For some inmates, learning a trade provides hope for a stable future outside prison walls. Overcoming addiction is another powerful form of transformation within Alaska state prisons. Many inmates struggle with alcohol or drug dependency, which often contributes to criminal behavior and damaged relationships. Rehabilitation and recovery programs help prisoners understand addiction, confront emotional pain, and build healthier coping strategies. Some inmates successfully break long-term cycles of substance abuse and begin rebuilding trust with family members and loved ones. Mental and emotional growth can also occur through counseling, therapy, and support groups. Prison life can force individuals to confront trauma, guilt, anger, grief, and emotional instability. Through therapy and self-improvement programs, some inmates learn how to manage emotions more effectively, resolve conflicts peacefully, and develop stronger self-control. These emotional changes can improve both prison behavior and future relationships after release. Religious and spiritual programs provide another source of hope for many prisoners. Faith-based activities, spiritual counseling, prayer groups, and religious studies can offer comfort, forgiveness, and emotional strength during difficult periods of incarceration. Some inmates find a renewed sense of purpose and inner peace through spiritual growth, helping them cope with loneliness and hardship. Family connections often become an important motivation for transformation. Many prisoners hope to repair damaged relationships with parents, spouses, or children. Letters, phone calls, and occasional visits remind inmates that they still have responsibilities and emotional bonds outside prison. The desire to become a better parent, sibling, or family member encourages some prisoners to focus on personal improvement and long-term goals. Correctional officers, teachers, counselors, and volunteers sometimes play a meaningful role in inmate transformation as well. Positive guidance, mentorship, and support from prison staff can encourage inmates to continue educational programs, avoid violence, and work towards self-improvement. Even small acts of encouragement may have a lasting impact on individuals who have spent much of their lives facing rejection or instability. The journey toward change is not easy. Many inmates face setbacks, emotional struggles, and difficult adjustments while trying to rebuild themselves. The harsh environment of Alaska's prison system can make transformation even more challenging because of isolation, mental stress, and limited resources. However, some prisoners continue striving to improve despite these obstacles, proving that personal growth can occur even in the most difficult conditions. Stories of hope and transformation demonstrate that prison is not only a place of punishment, but also a place where individuals can attempt to rediscover purpose, responsibility, and humanity. In Alaska state prisons, where cold weather and isolation create constant challenges, these moments of change become especially powerful examples of resilience and determination.